What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on the video. This is the channel where we cover everything Marathon, and there was a big event that happened yesterday that was sort of behind closed doors. It was a private Q&A with creators and the devs, and a lot of information has been posted on this, and I was one of the ones in there just kind of listening and asking questions. We got a lot of new information, so I want to go through some of that and just kind of update you guys on what's going on if you haven't seen it. I know there's probably a lot of videos out there explaining things, but anyway, this is mine, so let's get into it. All right, first I want to talk about the fact that we didn't get a chance to record any of this audio or video within this session. We could take notes and things like that, but because of this, we don't have all of that information to sort of show you, like video footage to show you. So I'm just going to be going through some of the notes that we have here. And I wanted to shout out Destin Legary on Twitter. He put a huge Twitter thread out that kind of took notes on everything that was going on as it was happening. I'll put a link to it in the description as well, but that's where I'm sort of reading off, just kind of going over the points because, well, my memory's not the best. I can't remember everything we talked about yesterday. So let's go through it, man. All right, the first and one of the biggest topics that's been surrounding the game, particularly with this alpha, is the feedback that players are giving around proximity chat. Proximity chat is something that I feel like an extraction shooter really needs. It's going to enhance the gameplay a lot. There's going to be a lot of funny moments, especially when you're streaming or making content. There's lots of moments where you can, you know, play with people, talk to them, tell them. You've seen tons of clips on the internet of, like, say, Tarkov, where people are talking to each other and it's hilarious moments left and right. And that type of interaction, I think, is absolutely necessary for a game like this, because you get into situations where you're fighting someone and they're hiding from you, or they're in a place where you don't really know. This sort of mind games start to happen. So they basically touched on it yesterday. Joe Ziegler actually said, we probably can't solve proximity chat for launch. So we're not going to have it at launch. The issue seems to be related more towards the legality of it, and in certain regions, they're having issues. The best news, though, is that they do plan to add it to the game. Like, they want it to be in the game. They've received a ton of feedback from creators, from people who've been able to test the game, and proximity chat is something that we have basically unanimously wanted. And so I think they've added it to the plans to try to get it in the game. They just have to go through the process of figuring out all of the hurdles, so jumping over all the hurdles to actually add it to the game. Next, they talked about a little bit of, like, sort of the assets, like the visual assets in the game. And I think it's important to note that this is an alpha, and they did confirm that this is a 2-month-old build that we are playing on. So they are 2 months ahead in terms of the development for what we have been playing in the alpha. And there's lots of, like, visual assets, like the claymores have, like, the wrong image on it or the wrong text on it. There's things that are just like little bits of polish that get added towards the end of the dev cycle, and we don't really have to worry about those things. What they were testing in this alpha is really functionality, gameplay, the core of the game, the foundation of the game. They wanted to make sure that was solid, and then of course the matchmaking servers, the multiplayer experience, that whole thing. So they were just confirming that, you know, we don't have to worry too much about that. That type of polish will be added. They're going to be looking over all that stuff as they move forward with the development. Another question that was asked, and this was asked by Destin himself, is that what would get players to stay? Like, what is the hook for the game? What is the single greatest differentiator for Marathon versus any other extraction shooter? Joe Ziegler actually responded to this, and his statement was that runner-based group play is something that we've built a lot around. They're basically trying to define this extraction shooter as a team-based sort of hero ability type extraction shooter, and that's what's going to set it apart. They've seen a lot of success with the, like, 2v3 battles and the 3v3 battles, and they're trying to understand how fights take place within the game. And that type of interaction, that PvP focus, is really what's going to differentiate the game. Like, in most extraction shooters, you'd be running around not hearing anything for a long time, then all of a sudden you get sniped from somebody sitting in a bush. That was his example. That type of gameplay is very high tension because you don't really know what's going to happen, but it doesn't really center the focus around the PvP interactions. It's more around the threat of the PvP interactions. He feels that the gameplay itself, the fights that break out in the game, are going to be the thing that sets Marathon apart. And in addition to that, I'm going to add a little bit to it. They did talk about secrets as well, and sort of that lore mechanic. They talked about the 4th map a little bit, not any real details that I would love to share with you, but there is the 4th map that is on the Marathon ship, and that is going to be more like a raid. He confirmed that this is not a PvE experience. This is going to feature PvP. Now, is it PvE focused? Yes, but there's always going to be the threat, no matter where you're playing in Marathon. He said there will always be the threat of a PvP interaction or another set of players or someone else running in and ruining or spoiling your fun. That is the beauty of this game. That is the whole point of this game, And so I don't think at all, even though I've said in previous videos that I would love to see a PvE experience, we are definitely not getting that. It's confirmed by Joe Ziegler at this time. Now, one of the criticisms with the alpha is that on the perimeter map specifically, the interactions, the PvP interactions were around like 1 interaction per team. And that to me feels a little bit lackluster. Like perimeter felt a little quiet to me. Now, if you're not looking for PvP, obviously it's nice to have a space to go to, but perimeter specifically felt really, really slow. Like you could just go through the whole game. You could completely avoid all the player interactions and you could just loot and try to finish your contracts and then get out. So what they're trying to do going forward with the alpha and then moving into the beta is to find the right balance between how many interactions is the best and what is too many interactions. And in doing that, they're going to be playing with all kinds of different things like the audio, for example, having the little small events like the supply drop or the incursion or something like that, having those events be louder and more noticeable on the map. Even though you could hear those things, I feel like if it was louder, it's definitely going to increase the PvP interactions. Joe Ziegler also talked about transparency and how transparent they plan on being going forward. And so far, as of like these last couple of months, they've been extremely transparent. They've been very open with like the Q&A stuff. And obviously there's things that they can't talk about. They want to save some of those secrets, some of those, exciting moments for closer to launch, but they are planning on being very, very transparent as they go forward. And they want feedback from the community, whether it's good or bad or constructive or not. They want the feedback because they want to try to make this game as good as possible. And that to me is the best sign. It would be really terrible if they were just thinking that the game was in a good place, not paying attention to the audience and then just sort of making what they thought was good. And then we all just didn't like it or we weren't on the same page. What they are doing is gathering as much feedback as possible. So if you're going to give feedback, try to be as constructive as possible because the idea is to make the game good. If you don't think it's good, then give a very constructive, very well thought out reason why it's not good. I think that's the best thing for the community. Simply hating on the game just to hate on it is absolutely ridiculous. So I hope that people can sort of turn the page because I've seen a lot of negativity online. Just turn the page. Just let's move forward. Let's try to help these guys make a great game because if there's a great game out there, we're going to have fun playing it. They also confirmed that we are going to see certain aliens in this game, and they didn't say exactly what that meant, but the hint obviously being the 4. I want to see some aliens in this game, man. I'm tired of shooting robots. I want to shoot aliens in the face. It's one of the things that I really loved about Destiny 2 is just the ability to shoot aliens. So like I said, they confirmed that there are going to be aliens. They did not say which ones, but the hint absolutely points towards the 4. Now, one thing to remember about this alpha is that it was like a really small download. It was like 5 or 6 gigs or something like that to download for PC. Not everything is in this game. Like the contract system, you probably could have played through it. If you played the alpha, you could have played through all the contracts and been like, there's not enough content in this game. Yeah, because that's not actually in the game for the alpha. There's a ton more, and they're still working on adding more contracts. Their contracts team is working double time on putting more things together. They're shuffling things around. They're trying to make a wide variety experience where you're not just sitting on one map all the time. You're going from perimeter to Dire Marsh to the 3rd and 4th maps. I feel like this is something that doesn't really have to be said, but I wanted to say it anyways because I have seen some comments where people are like, this game, it has nothing in it and they want $40 for it and it's bullshit. And that comment is kind of terrible because this is obviously an alpha. So there's lots more to put into the game. Speaking of adding more to the game, the question came up, will there be more varieties in terms of sponsored kits? And Ziegler says yes. There's basically going to be a variety of sponsored kits based on which faction is offering. And you're going to be able to pick a different sponsor kit for your playstyle. Like one is going to have the AR, probably another one will have the SMG, another one will have a sniper. Maybe not a sniper because the snipers are extremely powerful right now. But maybe like a pistol or, a sidearm or something like that, or a light machine gun. You'll be able to pick a variety of different sponsored kits, which is actually pretty nice. Now, they also talked on cosmetics. Obviously, they want to give players the ability to express themselves with their runners. However, to me, I was looking at this from a point of like Apex. If you look at Apex Legends, there's lots of different skins for those characters. But if you see those characters, whether they're in a skin or the default skin, you can instantly recognize who that character is. And that's a part of the actual gameplay, like the interactions you have with PvP. You have to be able to see somebody and instantly recognize what character that is because it gives you information on how to approach that battle. So if they were to give the players the ability to completely change the way those characters looked, that I think is a mistake. So they are going to add customization to the game. You are going to be able to customize your runner. I don't think it's going to be anything outside of like either small cosmetics or skins that were designed by them. So it's probably going to be less customization than you think, but they are definitely working on trying to put in more customization for the runner. Now, they also touched on a training mode or some sort of like, this has been a repeated feedback to them. They're definitely looking into putting something in. It doesn't sound like they're going to get it in for launch, but a training mode or some sort of like target range would be very valuable for a game like this. The thing that Ziegler hesitated on a little bit with this subject is the fact that the loot itself, like the different guns and the different levels of guns, like an exotic or like, you know, a purple or gold sniper, let's say, those things are supposed to be found in the game, and they're supposed to be sort of revealed to the player as they grind for them, as opposed to just being able to go in and use whatever guns that are there. They wanted to keep some of that mystery. They want to keep some of that storytelling, and I totally understand that. So I offer a little bit of a solution to them. I suggested it yesterday in that meeting, and I think this is a good solution. So put a shooting range out there with targets, aliens, whatever you want to put out there, and then give us the ability to use the guns that are actually in our inventory. I want to be able to use the guns there, use all of the equipment that I actually have in my inventory that I have unlocked. If it's not in my inventory, I haven't actually discovered it yet, then it's not available for me to use in that session. That would be my solution. And that kind of brings me to the next subject, which is removing mods from guns. Right now, you cannot remove a mod from a gun. You have to replace it with another mod, which then destroys the mod that's on the gun. I hate this system. Not being able to build your guns the way you want and swap mods between different guns. I hate that. I want to be able to take mods off, put them on different guns, because what's going to happen is you're going to put a mod on a gun. You'll be like, this is what works. I'm not even willing to try any other mods. And so that's what's going to go forward on that gun. You might lose it. You might get a gun from someone else that you don't even like the gun, but you want the mod on there and you can't take that mod off. They've talked about possibly taking a mod off of a gun of a player that was in the game, but you'd have to extract with that whole gun and the mod, and then you can take the mod off separately. But honestly, I don't really like that solution either. I think you should be able to mix and match whenever you want. What I would love to be able to do is to mix and match at all times and be able to take those guns into the shooting range. Now, again, if they don't want us mix and matching our mods on the guns, they don't want to be able to remove it for, you know, economy reasons, or they mentioned like making sure every action has a cost to it. If they don't like that no cost model, then keep it the way it is, but allow us to go into the shooting range and build the gun however we want. Once we've tested the gun in each scenario that we like, and we've got the gun set up the way we want with the mods, again, that are only from our inventory and only the guns from our inventory, then we can confirm that build the gun, and then that gun is in our inventory and is unchanged, and you can't make any changes after that. I'd be totally fine with that, as long as I get to test something before I commit to using that. Right now, when you put a mod on the gun, you're committed to using that unless you want to get a new copy of that gun or you want to replace that mod completely and lose it. So to me, I would like to be able to swap things around until I figured it out and then confirm that gun. They also touched on TTK being the most important thing that they're focusing on right now in a variety of situations with a variety of guns and a variety of like 1v2, 1v1. What is the TTK in the game? They want to dial that in and balance that before the game comes out. And I think that's a pretty smart thing. Right now, the TTK feels okay to me. I didn't feel like it was way too much, and I didn't feel like it was too short. So I hope they stick with something close to what they have now, because it felt pretty good to me. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think in the comments too. If you got to play in the alpha, what do you think of the TTK? Was it too slow, too fast? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. They also touched on matchmaking and how that was going to work. The matchmaking in this game is focused around separating the experienced players from the new players. They want to make sure new players don't have this sort of aggressive, just super hard time right in the beginning. They want to give them a chance to get a little bit of gear so that when they go in, they can learn a little bit, have a little bit of gear, be a little bit more prepared to fight against someone who's experienced, maybe know the map a little bit more. So they're focused on that. They want to separate experience from non-experience. That doesn't mean that it's like skilled and not skilled. You could be super experienced and not have any skill at all. Me on a daily basis, or you could be like, you know, not experienced at all, but have really good gun skill. So they're basically just trying to separate the experienced from the unexperienced. They also talked about a player market. There is no plans for a player market at this time. They just feel like this game is not set up for it, and they just don't really like how that affects the economy. There will not be a player market in Marathon. Next, someone asked about suppressors and whether or not they'd be added to the game. And yes, they want to add suppressors to the game. They're in the process of figuring out the balance for them. What should be the experience with a suppressor? Is it all about noise? Is it all about, you know, distance or damage fall off? That type of thing is being explored right now. They want to have suppressors in the game, so I think we will see them at a future date, possibly for the beta or maybe the launch, but they're definitely looking at how to implement those. Now, they're also going to be making some improvements with audio. They plan on making a whole bunch of changes with the audio because I felt like the audio was a little bit bad. You could definitely hear like the bots, but when it came to players, they were a little bit quiet. So they're going to be not only increasing the volume of a player's footsteps, but they're also going to be changing the sounds depending on the materials that they're walking on. If it's like a slushy, wet marsh, that'll be louder than if you're just walking on plain ground. Or if you're walking on like a graded metal, like overpass type sidewalk situation, that should be like way more loud, right? So they're going to be doing all kinds of audio balancing going forward. It was a great meeting. It was almost 2 hours long. I did not expect that type of time directly with those devs, and I really appreciate everyone who was there, all the devs, everyone that organized the event. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate being part of that creators program. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will catch you on the next one. Happy running.